defense when you've already seen each other? Who learns more from going head-to-head?
I believe we both do, actually. There's some things that we look back at the game that we felt like we did good in certain situations. We don't want to replicate having to be in 19 third downs. So we obviously got to do better on first and second down. And I think that'd be a big, deciding factor in this game, is how much we improved in that and trying to stay out of third downs.
Obviously, a lot of things worked well this year, and a lot of players played well. A lot of things came together. But Chandler, if he doesn't work out, it feels like it's a tough road to hoe. How important was getting the right quarterback to where you are now?
Yeah, I think no matter what level football is being played, the guy that's receiving the snaps and throwing the ball and handing it off impacts everybody's team's ability to be successful. Whether you look at it in high school, college, NFL, that's just a pretty constant deal from that position group.
What's the biggest surprise in terms of something that worked or worked out? I look at the offensive line and some of the injuries you took and still being where you are. Yeah. For you, what's the thing that pleasantly surprised you, maybe?
Pleasantly surprised me? That's a good question. I think, let me think about that and come back to that.
We got a couple guys dealing with injuries. Do you expect to have Boley, Ross, or Vaughn back this week?
Yeah, well, it's championship week, right? So until the athletic trainers tell us they're not available, I'm expecting them to be back.
When you guys played Duke the first time, what were some of the things about their defense that stood out to you the most?
Well, they're well coached, right? And they have a scheme that they truly believe in. They do it, right? They have their changes and their tweaks, but they have a foundation of what they do. And they're going to play man coverage. They're going to play zero coverage. They're going to blitz you. Their guys are going to play hard. They're really good with their hands on the defensive line, of being able to attack blockers and shed blockers, and their linebackers run hard to the ball. It's a really good group, right? That plays synchronized, right? And for us to be able to win the game, we had to play better than we did, the first time.
Meshing 50 new faces, 30 from the portal, is a challenge. Mm-hmm. Looking back, what do you feel like made the difference?
The right guys, and when we look back at it, that was a big point of emphasis from the character standpoint. And it's not just the, off the field character, it's the football character too. And so as much as we could in the investigation and the speed dating, right, and trying to connect as many dots to people that we trust that may have had some relationship with that young man that can vouch for him. Because we know, for us being in this locker room, that's a big piece, right? And being at this university, right? This is not a place for everybody, right? This is not a program for everybody. And the characteristics and traits that we were seeking, felt like we were able to get those type of guys. And now you're seeing the benefits of that because, one, the character of them as young men, and then their football character, meaning like they fight through adversity, they love to work, they love to compete. And when you put all that together and, you stay healthy for the most part, at critical positions, good things can happen, and we're reaping the benefits of that.
What has Jack Whitmer meant to you guys on the O-line this season?
I tell you, man, Jack's going to have a tremendous story to tell as an alum of UVA, right, in Virginia football. And I think about, after my first year here, and we had a conversation about, if you want to be able to help this team, to consider moving from tight end to offensive lineman. And, he didn't bat an eye. He kind of took that approach on and tried to develop there. And he added 60-something pounds or whatever the case was. Last year, he started for us in a couple games early in the year, and we won those games. And then, the rotation went where it was. And honestly, after the transfer portal, he probably didn't see much of a light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that we had brought in several guys to help that position group. But he stayed committed to his process, compete in the spring, compete in the fall camp. And, after game one, 18 plays after game one, he's back in there as a starter. It hadn't batted an eye. Has done a really good job for us, So.
This is not the first year that Coach Elliott has said the goal is to go 1-0 every week. But do some teams commit themselves more to that than others? And has this team?
Have we committed more? I don't think we committed any more. I think just when you add in a couple guys who've kind of been through that process, and you bring guys that come from some winning programs, right, that kind of seen the process, the steps that we've been trying to take. And then you combine that with the guys that we had here that, last year, when it was 5 games, we lost by 1 score, right? This year, 4 games or so that we were able to win by 1 score. I just think that's growth, right? That's growth as in the program from the coaching staff to the players, and then you add in the guys who may have experienced those same circumstances. They know how to fight through that, right? And not one point in any game this year have we said, or myself up in the press box said, man, I'm really concerned about us being able to win this game. Right? At no point this season that I was ever, whether we were down, whether we were up, the team was doing whatever, because of the belief of everybody in this program that we step on the field, like we'll have a chance to win the game.
Nice wrinkle on that direct snap.
Yeah.
I think Ennis said you've been practicing that for 10 or 12 weeks.
We not exactly 10 or 12, but a couple, right? A couple. And we put a lot of time into our goal line packages, right? Now, historically you may get maybe 15 to 20 of those plays, rough give or take, throughout the course of the season. So you spend a lot more time in practicing than you actually get to do it in the game. But you have to, because when it arises, it's so critical, right? And one of the things, when you look at the previous year, our goal line touchdown ratio was horrible, right? This year, right, with the addition of Jamari and some of the things we were doing schematically, like we're inside the 3, we're pretty much, guaranteed to score. We got to do the same thing on Saturday, but, that's just coaching staff, putting together a plan, the players repping it, executing it, and then going to do it on Saturdays.
Was he always that wide open in practice?
He was. He was. Yep. Now, we had to tell Robbie Engelberg to let him be open a little bit, because Robbie does a good job of trying to eliminate plays for us because he plays them so well. So.
Trell had such a great performance against Duke a couple of weeks ago. Is that strictly him winning one-on-one matchups? Yeah. And how big will
some of that was,
be?
Right? And I think for Trell, coming after the bye week, you just saw him take another step forward in his preparation, right? And the way that he practiced, the speed at which he practiced, the consistency at which he practiced. So the second half of the season, his results is all based off of how he's been preparing, right? And, Chandler has a lot of confidence in him. Like Chandler has a lot of confidence in all the guys. And the balls, we tell these guys all the time, like particularly as a receiver or tight end, the ball's going to find the open guy, right? If you do your job and be where you're supposed to be, like passing game is about spacing, timing, and trust, right? If you do your job and be where you're supposed to be, and then capitalize on your opportunities.
It's a rematch. Do you start from scratch? Do you only look at adjustments? How do you go about it?
You don't start from scratch, right? We're the benefactors that it was 4 weeks ago, 3 games, or no, 2 games, right? Yeah, 2 games ago. So there was a lot of investment into that game, right? Because you think about it, we had just came off of a bad loss, right, to Wake Forest at home, and we had to recoup, right? And as a staff and as a offense, right, because that outing against Wake Forest was awful, right? It was awful. So, and we knew we had to score points against Duke. So the preparation that goes into, studying them, finding out what's the best ways we can try to put ourselves in position to score points, right? And then you take that information, that data, and then these last 2 games, compare, right? Some of the things still holding up true in certain situations, or is it not? Did they change something? Because we've been in playoff mode, for 3 weeks. So has Duke, right? They had lost to us, kind of set them back a step in the ACC rankings. They knew they had to go beat Carolina. They knew they had to go beat Wake Forest to put them in a position that if some other things fell in their favor, then they'd be in the ACC Championship. So all of us kind of be in the same mode, right? And so, you put forth your best, right, to go win. So, I think there's a good body of work of the last 2 weeks of what they've done, which is not a lot different. I mean, they do what they do, and they execute it pretty well. So.
Obviously, all focus is on Saturday, but it was just announced that you'll be playing the first ever FBS game in Brazil next year. What are your thoughts on that?
I have honestly no thoughts, bro. Right now, it's tunnel vision on trying to become ACC champion since, 1995, right?
First outright one.
First outright one, right?
All right, so I gave you 8 minutes.
Yep.
Now tell me.
All right, give me the question again. Okay.
What about this offense, the way it came together, pleasantly surprised you that it turned out better maybe than you envisioned even?
Obviously, I had grand hopes and aspirations of being able to run the football, right? And due to the fact that there's been musical chairs, at least for my initial plan of what the O-line was going to look like, right? And some of the pieces, how they had to evolve, and to be able to run the ball, not only when we need to, when we want to, situationally, was a big improvement for us over the course of the year. Now, the X-Brown, right, Jamari, Noah Vaughn contributed in that, Harrison Whaley, and then the tight ends, the running backs, and really the receivers, because we asked the receivers to be involved in the run game and blocking. So I think that's as unselfish as anything, is the biggest improvement or thing I'm most proud of, right, is our ability to be able to, run the football.
And then you mentioned X and losing him. We've talked about
Yes.
this a little bit, but you lose that dynamic of throwing to the back. And then the last 2 weeks you've been doing that more with Jamari. Did he win you over? Did you?
No, actually, there was a point, I can't remember, a couple weeks ago, where I was looking at, and Jamari, and maybe somebody had told me, like he had 20-something catches after, maybe 7 or 8 games. It was quiet, right? Because naturally you'd think we were throwing the ball to X, but Jamari was already involved in that, right? And so, there's just been opportunities where he's been a check down option where Chandler's found him in the check down, those type things. So it's just kind of a natural flow of the offense.
New York came in at Louisville, kind of like first time he got thrown in, and
Yeah.
then last week he got thrown in again. Did you see a difference in kind of his play?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Ben York had.
Oh, yeah,
thrown
yeah,
in.
yeah.
Did you
So,
see a difference in how he handled it this time?
No, actually, because against Louisville, he got thrown in the fire and really handled that really well, right? I think that was a big step for Ben, right? Taking a big stride in his confidence. He's got the talent, right? We're super excited about him and his ability. I think being thrusted in that environment versus that defensive front and not knowing it was going to happen, he didn't have any time to think about it, right? And we just continue to see that growth from him. And the same thing Saturday night, right? Again, he expected to play but didn't know that Boley would go down, and he had to go out and play, I think, 50 snaps and did a good job. So.
Are there any specific adjustments you're expecting from Duke as they watch tape from your guys' last matchup?
Because Chandler did have some success, like kind of some scrambles and things, so I imagine they will try to contain him a little bit to try to eliminate some of those explosive plays. They already have their run blitzes and things, so I imagine they will have something different, right? And maybe try to, slow us down, or like they did, right? We had some negative yardage plays on some drive starters in the run game or second down, so I'm sure they'll probably hopefully try to continue to do that, and that's where, the cat and mouse game where we got to try to stay ahead of them. They go to be trying to make their adjustments, the game within the game. Yeah.
And I say with Jamari, when you run him repeatedly, is it with the hope that eventually he's going to pop one?
Absolutely, because that's kind of been the theme of the year, right, with him. It might be 3 or 4 or 5, it gets 12, then next thing you know, it may pop for 40 or 50. And that's really kind of run game in itself, right? Obviously, we all love a 30-yard run every time we hand the ball off, but that's really unrealistic. It's just a repetition of it, right, and staying consistent and just giving it time, like Coach Boone from Remember the Titans, right? Like Novocaine, just give it time, it'll work, right? Type deal. And especially when you get into this phase, right, championship phase of football, in November, December, right, the elements change, right? And, the physicality of the game is what can wear people down, and really seeing who wants to strain the longest and the hardest, right, in these type situations.
Ennis has made a real impact on your offense. Just what makes him so good?
Because he is a very student of the game, right? He's the guy. He sleeps in the building, right? He asks really good questions. He studies tape. He sees things like a coach, right? So for him, his preparation is so elite, right? And he has obviously a tremendous passion to want to play. A guy that's missed his last 2 years due to ACL injuries, to have this opportunity, knock on wood, that he remains healthy throughout this Saturday, for him to have a really full, healthy season. I mean, he's just taking advantage of this opportunity.